Hi, this is Laurie McPherson, Career Wing Woman for Scottish Women in Business, and today I'm talking about how to knock their socks off in an interview. So this is in three parts, before, during and after. So first of all, I'd like people to think about interviews a little bit differently. And instead of worrying so much about the company and the job description, absolutely, you should still do that. And I'll talk more about that. Have a good think about what you want to tell them about you, and have a good think about your story and your own CV. This sounds completely crazy, but so many people don't really know their own career story, especially if you've had your CV done for you and you can't go into all the details about what you've done before. So think as much about you as about them. So, with that in mind, bear in mind an interview should be a two-way conversation. You should be getting a feel for them, and anything that you're not sure about, you should have a think about how that might manifest itself later on, as well as making sure that they know you're a fit for the role. So start by preparing your own career story and your past, present, and future ready for your first interview question, because it's coming. It's always there, and it sounds like, tell me a bit about yourself. What brought you here today, or walk me through your CV. And you want to use a past, present, and future structure. Find the golden thread. All of my work has involved customers, or all of my work has been about whatever, or if it's been very varied, focus on what you've done before, bringing them mostly up to date about what you're doing now. And just a quick tip on this one, this question is usually first question. You're not even, comfortable yet. You're just sat down, and people tend to go into a big ramble. They say their name, they know that. They say their age, their kids, all of that. They're not asking that. What they're asking about is really your career history. So tell them about your career history and the golden thread that ties it all together. Tell them where you're at right now, and tell them in the future that you want to be doing a role that looks like theirs, and or progression within that. Have that prepped, because that's coming. Then you want to be doing your prep on the company. Yep, absolutely. Look at them on Google. Look at their website. What are their values? Who are the team? I'd do a quick bit of sleuthing on who the people are who are interviewing you on LinkedIn, if you know any names. If you don't, have a look at who the HR people, heads of people, talent, whatever they call them, might be, so that you have a bit of an idea what they might be talking about. I remember only 1% of LinkedIn users are active, so they might be talking about nothing, but it's worth having a look and seeing, are they recruiting for lots of jobs, which means growth? Are they talking about awards they've won, tenders they've won, work that they're doing at the moment? What might be interesting for you to have up your sleeve? I always say it for later on, that they might want you to reference in the session. So have some intel on them, which, not just looking at their own website, also just doing a quick Google of them. What are other people saying about them? Again, you don't want to give them anything negative, but if certain things are out there, it's worth having these in the back of your mind so that you can potentially reference questions if they come up, and also having a look at some of the key people so you know what they're talking about. Once you've done that prep and you've done your basic prep for your first question, you also want to do a little bit of prep on the questions that they're definitely going to ask. And we get these from the job description. So if the job description says, must have managed a large team across multidisciplinary functions and globally, they're going to ask a question about, tell me about a time that you've done that. So have a look at the job description, look at the bit that says responsibilities and what you must have. And from that, work out your 6 to 8 competency-based questions that are likely to ask about things you've done before. Now, if they've specifically said it's not a competency-based interview, great, fantastic, they're horrible. But if they haven't, it probably is, and they're probably going to want specifics. Now, this is where people really struggle. They say, oh, I always do that, or I can't remember. So to understand from the employer's point of view, they have a scoring sheet in front of them, and they're scoring you because they're asking you the same questions as everyone else. And this is to avoid any obvious allegations of bias. So you have to be asked the same questions as the person coming before and behind you. If they give them a really clear, specific example, they can say, right, let's mark that 6 out of 6 with a competency-based question. That means they gave us tons of evidence, and you give them a tiny bit of evidence, and they only mark you 1 out of 6. You're behind the other candidate already. So fair or not, a good way to do it or not, if they ask competency-based questions, you have to be ready with your answers. So think about specifics. Good starts for competency-based questions are things that went wrong, things that were going to go wrong, specific examples of specific projects. You can absolutely say, this is something I always do. Here's a specific example. You must give them specific examples in the STAR format. So situation, where you were, what job you were doing, task, what you had to do, the action, what you did, and the result or impact that had. So this meant that we were able to run a programme for 20 disadvantaged children in Castlemilk, for example. That's what they want as a result, and which led to 50% of them achieving jobs while on the programme. They want a result from that. So it's really hard if you've done a similar job for years. Oh, we always do that. I can't possibly think of an example. This is going to take some time. So prep your STAR answers in advance. The first time you do it, it's going to take lots of time, but once you've done it, you'll usually be asked similar sorts of questions. So it's good to have your stars kind of ready. I would write them or type them out long form, get them into bullets, and then eventually you want to learn them so that you know when they ask a question about a time when you had to manage a multidisciplinary team, you can say, when I worked at X, I had to, so I did, and the result was the project was finished on time and on budget, with a bit more detail. So have a think about your specifics. And as I say, this isn't going to come to you in 30 seconds. You've been doing the job for 30 years. You are going to have to think really hard about specific examples. This usually makes up the bulk of the interview. Then there might be some technical questions about what you know about certain tools and techniques, more so if it is a specifically techie role. And they might also ask some strengths-based questions like, what's a great day look like for you? What would you do if? These are harder to prepare, but just Google strengths-based questions online. You'll get an idea of the sort of thing. Again, bear in mind, what they want to know is how you fit their specific role at this time. So always have that in the back of your mind. Coming up to the end of the interview, you're likely to be asked, have you got any questions for us? Great question to ask is, if I was to get an exceeds in my first appraisal, what would I have to have done? What behaviours would I have displayed? What sort of attributes would you need to have seen? They know you want to not just do the job, but do the job really well. And if you do have any questions about, I've noticed that you are recruiting for masses of staff across different functions. What does your growth plan look like? A little tick in the box, you've done a little bit of extra research. If they don't talk about next steps at this point, you can ask, what might the next steps be? The flexibility question can come in here, though I would probably not sit in a seat if I wasn't sure that there was some flex. I might say something that sounds like, is this a good time to talk about flexible hybrid working? I've noticed on the advert that you're open to this. If they don't say they're open to it, I would find out before you go through the interview process so that you're not wasting anybody's time if they're expecting you in the job 5 days a week, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I wouldn't take it that far. But if you think it's definitely a possibility because they've told you it is, then absolutely work with that. And then just a final point on the after the interview, always follow up with a thank you very much for your time today. Looking forward to hearing from you, email. If you have messed up, if something hasn't gone well, not the whole interview, because probably, you're out, but if you've done something that you wish you had said something differently, it's absolutely fine at this point to say, whilst I was in the interview, I talked about X. I wish I had also remembered to tell you blah, 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 which went out of my mind at the time. I wonder if this is useful or you want to discuss it further, get in touch. I know someone recently who did this and got the job after completely freezing on a particular question. So always worth doing, always worth following up so that they know, again, it just shows keenness, willingness, and that you want to be there. Hope this is helpful, and that is how I would knock their socks off in an interview with my prep before, great answers during. I would practice all of my answers before I go in, record them. I know it's horrible, and watch yourself back. Make sure that they have enough depth and substance to them, and then always follow up at the end.